Hello, what's up, everybody? Um, this is going to be the first solo episode. This is episode within what I want to call my Tripster experience stories. So, the purpose of this is for just speaking upon internal and external experiences that I've had within my life, but then not only within my life, but then researching about other people too as well within history, and giving a point of view, a perspective on those stories of people within the past, and also on myself too as well. The reason for doing this is to be able to give analysis and perspective, which is what I believe all of what we all have is just analysis and perspectives on different things. Everything is essentially an opinion until it is proven to be true. And a lot of times we have to be open in order to be able to listen to other people's opinions in order to help expand upon our own truth. That does not mean that we adapt other people's perspectives and opinions and analysis, all those things as our own, but we can still listen in order to be able to rate our understanding of different things. So, me, I am definitely into particular things spiritually. I've learned about multiple different areas of spirituality from different places around the world, all throughout growing up. I am still a child within the study and hope to learn a lot more within the future. I am no expert at any type of spiritual system, any type of religion. All I know is I've experienced a good amount of them, and I believe firsthand experience is very quintessential in order to be able to get a true analysis on how a system is and how it functions. You have to kind of indoctrinate yourself within experiences dealing with it in order to open yourself up to the possibility of how real it is or how fake it is. And I believe one of the ways in order to be able to really see things for yourself is through psychedelics. I believe in using them for spiritual experiences, for mental health, as well as physical health. I believe that they can be very vital for multiple different things in multiple different areas of study, dealing with medical issues, dealing with the brain and the body. But I believe that within healing, you have to have a holistic approach, dealing with not only the spiritual, but also the physical, the mental, too as well. You have to have a combination in order to really root out different things to help you be at optimum in terms of dealing with this life. Now, you're never going to be perfect, but we can always strive to be better. So, my experiences dealing with them started back when I was living in the house in which I was living inside of, and I had different roommates, and one of my roommates connected me to them. And at first I was very scared of them because somebody I knew growing up, their stepfather, picked a batch of mushrooms, thinking that they were, I think, edible. I don't think he were picking them with the purpose of trying to get psilocybin psychedelic mushrooms, but just to like eat them. And so I was like, oh hey, what? Homie doesn't know actually what he's talking about, and he gets us a batch of mushrooms that actually can kill us, but he had a long background in terms of dealing with his family members. He's talked about before with his cousins and everything like that, picking them growing up, and he knew what signs to look out for. In particular, how like when the psilocybin on the mushrooms, and like I said, I'm no expert, a tin will have like that bluish or darkish type of pigment on it, and sometimes it will also be purple too, as well, like a dark purple. And so that's like the basic thing that people look for. But there's multiple different strands, and I'm not an expert. I'm not going to try to point out which ones to take. I mostly have taken them with people that have way more knowledge than I do. Only thing I can speak on is my experience dealing with them, and I am not going to speak on my first experience within this episode, but speak upon one of my last experiences with this with my friend that introduced them to me, and this was a very powerful experience that I did not expect to happen. So it started from like when him and one of my other roommates they went down to a river and they took some before going down them with the purpose of tripping while going down the river, which I think the concept of that is extremely cool. So what we did was we took some right on the road there, and of course smoked a little bit contra or weed. And I should have learned from the previous time when I've done that when I do that, it kind of like drives my mind further. Like my consciousness tends to seep into my mind very deep down. And so I feel like I'm drowning or I'm being submerged within the ocean of my brain or my mind or my mind, and my consciousness can't come up to the surface to be able to fully see within my eyes, So this of course happened, but the reason why it happened was, so hey, we were on the river, and Mom always have had a paranoia dealing with water. And growing up, I heard a lot of black people have had that paranoia. It's like ancestral memory associated dealing with the slave trade and how so many black people or African people were thrown over the ocean, over the ship into the ocean and drowned, to the extent where a whole body of, where I believe the sharks basically changed up their travel patterns based off of the ships going from West Africa to the United States, and followed that pattern of the ship because of how many people they would potentially be able to eat. And so not only that, but being locked underneath ships for like 3 months at a time. And so it kind of generated this ancestral fear within us of water. That's what I've been taught growing up. And that's one thing I've had. I've had fear of ocean water, fear of river water, and being drenched and drowning in them. And I'm almost drowned as a young kid, mostly because of freaking out and not properly utilizing the skills that I was taught in terms of swimming wise. As a kid, I was just freaking out. I'm like, fuck, I'm in water, I might die, you know what I mean? So I already had paranoia owing to this, and I was hoping that the weed and everything helped calm my nerves down. And so what we did was we blew up the tubes. He was with his lady friend, and then we had another friend. He had his own tube, and I had my own, and we like tied our tubes together. Tied tubes. So we tied the tubes together, and we set out on it, and they hadn't hit yet, definitely hadn't hit yet, but I felt like as they started to hit, the paranoia started to go up higher and higher dealing with the water. And it was a fear of, if I'm tripping, I don't have, conscious awareness of what's going on, and I can fall over and I can drown, thinking that I wouldn't be able to swim as well, not being fully consciously there, It's almost like a control thing, within life for myself, where I feel the need to always have the wheel, and so with the will of my body, and it becomes a process of being able to let go of that wheel, and not only the will of my body, but the wheel of life, and kind of letting it flow. And so what happened was I was in the tube, and it was nothing that was causing me to, it's a river and wasn't rushing very hard. It was nothing that was going to cause me to be able to go out of the tube, bump me out. The only thing was the string was a lot longer or whatever, and so I was further away from people. And so that disconnection dealing with people, I was like, oh shit, what if I need help? They're further over there, they're on their own thing, not paying attention as much. And it's funny too, every single time I freaked out, they were laughing at me, which I think now is hilarious and something I really need. It's like, why are you freaking out, And so what was happening was, it started off super chill, After the paranoia went down a little bit, I was like, take hold of yourself, be a man, And so it got a lot more chill. It got a lot more chill. I started seeing things, and the trees started to move differently, and the shade and the color was a lot more cartoonish versus like how we normally see things. Um, then what happened was I felt like I saw like these giants, like outlines of these giants in the trees too. And I was wondering to myself, I was like, am I seeing a giant hiding in a tree, or am I seeing like the spirit of a tree personified in like a humanistic form that's very huge, Something to ponder. I don't really know, If you saw it doesn't mean I'm an expert on it. But seeing it like chilled me out, and I kind of forgot where I was and what I was doing. And then what happened was I came back to, and in terms of what was going on, I was flowing down this tube, and then the paranoia started setting in more, but then it rose. And then what happened was I felt like I was drowning within my mind, and falling deep. So almost like imagine you're within water and you're floating on water, and that's what you're used to, like, belly up, floating on water, looking up at the sky. And all of a sudden you're within the water and you're right below the surface, and your whole body is submerged. And you still see above the water, but you're below the water. You're within it, And so all the paranoia, hey, whether or not and breathe within this water, whether or not will I ever come out of this water, and reach the surface again. And so it was like that. It was like I was no longer seeing within my, like, on the surface of my eyes, but it was like I can see the lens of my eyes deep down inside, And then what happened was, when I started getting scared of drowning, I was like, fuck, I might drown or whatever. Even though I'm in the tube and I'm like, I'm safe, I start fucking falling into that consciousness. So now picture yourself on the surface right below, but now you have something that's pulling you down into the depths of the ocean or depths of the river, and you can't climb out of it, but then you realize every single time you want to go back up, you're going back up. But then you have this belief that you can't go fully to the surface, and then you get scared that you're going to go back down, and then you go back down. So that was happening. I didn't have the belief that I go back to the surface, but I want to go up further. I would go up further, but then I would fall back down. I did pull back down into that blackness. But even though I was within that blackness, that conscious blackness, that space, my consciousness falling down into it, it was like I was still there though, my consciousness was still there. My whatever entity in which I am that resides within my brain or my body was still there. It was just submerged below the surface of my eyes, And it kept on doing that, And it was funny, it was super funny, And then it was like, and this happened to me several times with different experiences. What I tend to do then is focus on my heart rate and my heartbeat. So I started focusing on my heartbeat, and I was like, oh shit. All this is happening. My body isn't forgetting how to pump blood throughout my body, And I'm like, oh, hey, well, if that's happening, I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. All right. And then I locked right underneath the surface. Not at the surface, right underneath the surface. And it was like the feeling of my body after that locking of being under the surface went away. So I didn't feel my body at all. And I more so felt myself as a conscious being. And then what happened was my consciousness was turned as like it shape-shifted into a baby. And so no longer did I feel like, 20, I think I was 25 at the time. No longer did I feel like 25-year-old Densu. I felt like baby, a toddler. And then as we kept on down the river, it was like I was aging. My consciousness was aging. So I went from toddler to child to young adult to old man. And then I saw myself, and my body was underneath the grave. And I was sitting, and I was looking around, and I didn't see the dead bodies everywhere. Like, not dead bodies, but a grave. And I was like underneath the ground. My body was. And so then I looked up, you know, and it was like this female energy entity, and it talked to me. And I think, from my whatever feeling that I have at the time, felt like it was like the river talking to me. And the river was like, life is like the river; it keeps on going, it keeps flowing, and you have to trust the flow of the river, And the more you trust the flow of the river, if less resistance, things it will carry you through, you know. And so after that, it was like I went reverting back to like the old man level consciousness, and we were going through rapid and everything like that. It was times in which that paranoia and that fear would come again, but it didn't come because I trusted the river. I trusted the flow of life. I trusted what was happening to me at that time period, and that light brought me to that moment, which is hard to say for different people dealing with different struggles, And one of the crazy things to come to terms with is that life is hard, And through those struggles, you can either, it was one Rastafari I knew growing up, and he said life is about 10% what happens to you and to 90% how you handle it. So there's a lot of things that we have to be constantly aware of in terms of within our struggles, and try to find ways in order to be able to go within that flow of life, to pass and make things better, But then also trust life in the fact that it hit create avenues to make things better. Maybe not this lifetime, maybe not the next one, maybe even the one after that, But we have to be actively and passively experiencing our story. So with these rapists and my friend and the rap he was on, his lady friend, it started, the air started sinking out of it, and so they started going down, and so they were paddling, trying to get to the side of the river, and me, in my head, my child, younger self, was like, oh, I feel like, a jerk, because I wasn't helping paddle to there, and we're all like tied together. And so I'm just sitting there, and they're like pulling me over. And then like my old man said was like, oh, I guess I'll help them out. And I took off my shoe and started pushing, like an oar to help get to, the side of the river. And everything switched from that moment on. It was wild because it was like an automatic switch too. So it wasn't like a progressive type thing where it's like, oh, I'm kind of feeling this way. No. And it isn't the first time I felt this way within a trip either. But it also reminds me of a lot of dreams that I had growing up too, where I was like this type of being within a dream and fighting these type of beings. So my mind switched over, and it was almost like, and then people might think it's funny or whatever because of movies and books, Twilight, hashtag, but it was like I switched over to more so like a werewolf type of mind, And I had to use the bathroom. I walked away to use the bathroom. And every single time, I would picture myself running on all fours out into the woods, And it was like I felt like my breathing changed, my mind changed, my consciousness changed. The much more of like a beast, That's the term in which most people can be able to associate with that type of like being, a werewolf type being. But it felt that way. It was no longer just a feeling of being a man anymore, And it always reminds me of, they talked about the berserker mushrooms that different Vikings used to take before on the war or within war, and it would turn them and it would make them go berserk, They even have like an anime out called the Berserker, and the dude fucks people up. I actually don't know whether or not the guy takes berserker mushrooms in it. I think a dude does in the show. I have not personally watched it, even though my younger brothers tell me I should watch it. The anime that I have seen somebody use berserker mushrooms, though, is one of my favorite animes. And what is it called? Because I mostly have watched it as a manga, like read it as a manga for years. What is it called? Vinland Saga. Now that anime / manga is super good, and they had a guy on it that took mushrooms. It was berserker mushrooms. He went wild as a mug, and I think he still sliced the shit out of the dude when he came after him, though. the main character is a young boy, and his dad was a badass, and he turns to a badass too through struggle, you know. And then light flows and teaches him a lesson that he was too young to learn when he was younger, you know. Same thing, same similar thing with this river, you know. I like how, I forget who said it, and I refer to Joe Rogan podcast all the time, but it was somebody on this podcast that talked about how mushrooms and psychedelics is almost like a medication you take periodically in order to remember the lessons once you learn from the previous time period, you know. But then also sometimes those lessons you forget about or whatever, and then you go through struggle in life, and then you revert back to that experience you had, and it helps you go through this current experience you having dealing with the struggle in life and make it a lot easier for you. It's definitely done that to me. It helped me stay a lot more calm, cool, collected through a lot of things versus being more so paranoid. So going back to the story, we hit land. I hit this mode. And not only was I like wanting to run off into the woods or whatever, straight up like beast mode and everything like that, I also had the rush of eating people. You know, it's crazy. You know what I mean? I don't normally feel that way, but on here, people would be like, "Oh well, it's like bath salts," or as I heard, like people go crazy, eat people on bath salts or bite people. It wasn't like that. It was a little different. You know, it was still more control. You know, it wasn't like uncontrollable state. It was just urges, just like how people have an urge to eat something else. So what I did was I saw this rock next to a tree, and it was a really big rock. You know, one of those big rocks you can climb up on. So I went over and I sat on the rock, and I closed my eyes to meditate and chill the fuck out. And so when I was meditating and chilling out, it was like at first that blackness, and I don't know if this happens to other people. These lights I've only seen mostly when I've tripped and listening to music. I like tripping. I listen to music. I put on headphones. I close my eyes and I'll see these light patterns. But it was almost like the light patterns in the music is programming my brain a particular way. Now I believe, and I've heard this growing up too, that you know you have to watch what music you listen to, because that music you listen to, that waves, can affect your brain. You know what I mean? So the same thing with this. So like I listened to a song about love and care, and I feel so much love. I feel so much care, and it was like I can see it in visual form through different lights. And particular colors would reside with particular songs. So in this instant, it was no songs, you know. It was just me trying to meditate. I saw first blackness, darkness, you know. It was a submerging of my ego. But then the more I concentrated, the more I saw the outline of almost like a Buddhist figure encirculating my body with light patterns. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, whether I've seen with my astral eyes or my mental eyes, my spiritual eyes, or whatever, what have you. One of the coolest things, you know. And it was definitely like a Buddha, or like the statue of Ambak, you know. I only know that from the movie Ambak, but that was what it was like. It was like yellow and green lights. It was like peaceful, you know. And it kind of reminds me of when I had a trip one other time, and it was talking, and I see different lights, and it was almost like it was like light beings and different things like that. And it talked about in terms of, or what was coming to me within my mind, or maybe it's my brain talking to myself, or maybe it's something else, you know, being in tune, so to speak, what people like to say, you know. Maybe it was that, but it was like something was talking to me. It was like, you know, you have different beings that try to impact people within life, because it's almost like your soul or your energy becomes a part of those beings if you die within the state in which they are. And so let's say sadness, you know, you know, I learned growing up, not only is an emotion, but it's an energy, it's a feeling, a feeling, an energy personified as a feeling that you're experiencing within your body, but it's an energy that's there, that exists outside of your body too as well. And so let's say if you die sad, Conversely, you become a part of sadness within death, and you increase the energy of that. You know what I mean? And so it was like talking to me. It was talking about how these different energies, might want you to die sad, might want you to die angry, might want you to die this way. So it's like you transfer over into becoming a part of that when you pass away. And so that's why it was like telling me like one of the biggest things about making other people try to help other people feel good, and feel positive and productive, feel like they have a good life and everything like that, is because you don't want them to be a part of the accumulation of the energy of sadness after death too as well. You don't want them to be trapped and imprisoned within that energy, and in that way it's almost like you become a part of hell. And hell isn't circumstances of decision that you made within life. Not just that, it's also the you becoming part of energies in which you were entrapped in within life. So if you're entrapped in anger, you become a part of anger, and then you're a part of the energy in which tries to increase anger within the world. Same thing with death and destruction. If you die within war, what happens is that the energy of war and death, in a negative way, starts to build up more, And so it's like to help keep that from happening, it's almost like you have to help stir people and like be positive and productive towards people in whatever way you can. That's one of the reason why I like jiu-jitsu, And people don't really understand fighting, but fighting can be very much a purifying thing as well as jiu-jitsu. And I also think it's wild as a mud that some of the the longest lasting modern day religion in terms of dealing with Buddhism has a lot of associated in dealing with martial arts, especially dealing with the Shaolin monks. But then not only in terms of Buddhism, but then you also, I believe it's sects of Hinduism. I might be wrong, but I know it's sects of religions within India, and that's heavily tied to martial arts too as well. Martial arts very much, to me, is like meditation. It's a meditation that you're doing with somebody else through active movement and progressing and focusing on reality, and it gives you a sense of reality through the tap, of how good you are and how bad you are and what things you need to progress in. And we have to be realistic with the taps within life. So going back to what we were talking about before, and basically having this light being the outline of myself, dealing with like it looked like the Buddhist being. It was very peaceful, and everything that torn away, and the ego started being torn away more and more. And the only thing that was keeping me from staying there was the ego lingering, trying not to be destroyed. The same thing has happened to me when I've been inside of isolation tanks. And I lose the concept of myself and who I am and what I am, and I feel more just a part of a part of everything, not as something separate, but something that's a part of something greater, the flow of existence and non-existence, duality. And so, but the only thing, I would hit the side of the isolation tank, and I'm like, what? Where am I? Oh shit, I didn't talk. Oh shit, I didn't think. Oh my god. And then the ego started to set in. But with the ego came in the negative, the fear, the paranoia, all those different things. And because it's within death, the ego is what's scared of being lost. The sense of self. And say if you exist forever on after death, and this might not just be something that other people feel. This might be something that I've contemplated mostly with when it comes to being afraid of death. It isn't becoming a part of everything, and what you do become a part of and live on through that, in a sense, is the sense of self, the ego, wanting to stay alive, wanting to stay within existence. Maybe even the body doing that too as well, because the body's like, fuck, you did to live on, I don't, what the fuck, man, this shit, that's fucked up. It's like what's we house you for so many different, so many years, and you get to live on. Not tied to me, but I can't live on. I have to go back to the earth. Even though I carried you and allowed you to live out the experience, I'm in your vehicle for so damn long. You know, that's why I think it's so good to praise your body to a certain extent, and that doesn't mean like looking yourself in the fucking mirror and like oh my god, I'm so hot. Ugh. No, it's appreciate like the earth, appreciate the fact that you have a body and allow you to have a body to have this life experience. Was it your parents, your grandparents, those you came from? You know what I mean? You know, I think a lot of times we see ourselves just here and now. We have to see ourselves as an individual, but also see ourselves as the line and chain that brought us to be able to live out this experience. So we're, in a sense, we're also a continuation of the experience of our ancestors. So it's good to acknowledge them, praise them, and see what they did and see what we can do to help arrest that and make things better for this world, for each other. So going back to the experience, I forget what happened, what caused me to go outside the meditation state, but it was like fucking getting dark as a mud, and I was still like out of it, you know what I mean? But I still had no feeling in my body. So everybody was like, it's cold as fuck. I didn't feel cold. I didn't feel heat. I didn't feel touch. Didn't really feel anything, It's the first time it's ever happened to me, Like, no sensory whatsoever. Like, what are you doing, nerves? And so, but it took down that sense of worry too, as well. For in a big way, it was like when we were heading back, when we were leaving, homie was driving super fucking fast, you know what I mean? And, trying to rush to get back. And, I wasn't even like, when I was looking, it felt like I wasn't even looking within the car. It was like I was outside the car, looking at the car, which I was in, and just like, yeah, you'll be all right, homie. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And so, like, normally, especially at that time period, driving for me was like, fucking, especially somebody that drove wild, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Chill the fuck out, slow down, please. Otherwise, I'm closing my eyes, trying to forget that I'm in this situation. But no, I was like there, and I'm chill. And it was like, whatever want to happen, But because of the lack of the feeling in my body, the paranoia went down that much more. The fear went down that much more. Because that consciousness within the body felt fine. And so I didn't fear the fear of what was going to happen to the body. If that makes sense. But it caused me to enjoy the ride that much more. And be like, oh shit, I did the fast and everything like that. I don't even remember. I wouldn't even be able to tell. But it definitely was not the fastest, I've ever been, when somebody drove in a car. I think the number one fastest was actually when I had a project while in college for NASCAR. And we were organizing a Chase U event for Georgia State there to sell tickets. And then also an event for Chase U. Oh yeah, we put together a press conference with him. I didn't get to go, but I helped organize it, but didn't get to go because working behind the scenes. And then an event actually at the NASCAR event. And when we were on there to survey the site and everything, with one of the guys from the graduate department and the professor over everything too, we got into a pacer car. That shit was cool as mud. Like, they took us out on the track and let it drive. Like, we didn't drive ourselves, so they drove us on the track with this pacer car super fucking fast. That shit was dope as fuck, you know what I mean? They told me, I wonder if they still do it, but you can take your car out there and they do, like, drag racings over there, too, I believe, on Friday evenings. So, you ever want to get your, like, Fast and Furious on, that shit would be dope as fuck. I kind of actually want to do that, too. Ain't trying to fuck with my car. But that would be something fun to do, if I had a car designated for fast just for that, Race all y'all. But, the feeling didn't come back to my body until, I think, the next day. In terms of actually be able to have touch, a sense of, like, temperature, sensory. But that was the most relaxed I've ever felt. and the paranoia, residually, gone down. Dealing with things and being relaxed within experiences caused me to enjoy them a lot more versus being afraid within them, especially dealing with water. You know, one of my favorite songs is by Fela Kuti, and the name of the song is "Water Has No Enemy." And I play this all the time for my mental health. I play it to hype myself up. I play it because I love the sound of it. And I love the line of it. Water has no enemy. You know, water, and it says in the song, water can drown your child and it still won't be your enemy. And the reason why is because you cannot live without water. Water can kill you. Water can burn you. But you cannot live without water. You cannot wash your clothes without water. You cannot sustain your body without water for more than 3 days. You cannot cook a lot of things without water. Water is quintessential for sustainability of our body within this life. But water can kill you. Water can also heal you too as well. Life is like this. Even though life can kill you and literally take itself away from you, you also need life in order to have this human experience. It's a trippy fact. And it's like that for a lot of things. Within, like, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to different things dealing with school, work, everything. There's always a sacrifice and a give and take. And it kind of helps when you're less paranoid within it, you're less air within it, and you trust the process, and you trust yourself to pull yourself out. But then also put in the work of keep on going down the river, and not trying to hop out. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think one of the number one things, though, dealing with my trips experience, especially dealing with this, was trusting my body. I think that a lot of times we don't realize that our body is a very high-functioning machine, biological machine. And we deal with machines that break down all the fucking time, and we put our bodies through shit. And a lot of times our bodies do break down, but what is not breaking down? Automatically, we did years to be able to utilize it is our brain, our heart, our muscular system, our bone structure, all those different things. And having a trust within them, and allow you to be able to utilize it way better. Not only having trust within your body, but then also putting things in it to allow it to be able to work better. And one of the things that you have to put in it is time and worth within your mind. Because if you can be a healthy person in the world but not have it in mind, then things are only to start to deteriorate. So I think that my tripping experiences has helped me work on my mind to be more relaxed, you know what I mean? Have less depression, less anxiety, less paranoia, so I can relax and chill a lot more. And that relax and chill a lot more, it causes me not to see my body in a bad way, or treat it in a bad way that much more. One of the things that I had an issue with for the longest time is I would overtrain, because I felt like that was the only thing I had within life was training. Whether I won or lost the competition or role or whatever. It was putting my body through the shit because that was like the only thing I had. It was like an avenue to escape from my depression and dealing with things going on within here. And so I would train, and like training isn't bad, but training within a certain sense for a certain reason can be bad, and it can cause you to start having an issue with your body. I brought Justin on, and we talked about that. I had a lot of muscular issues, deficiencies and muscles that weren't firing off anymore. I'm training all the time, you know what I mean? But then my body's looking crooked and lopsided, and it wasn't about just overusing them. It's also embedding mental depression, mental anguish, different pain mentally that embedded within different parts of my body. It showed. And we had to work on those things. We had to bring those things out. And like we talked about, helping bring those things out, help bring back memories, that I try to dig deep down inside. and cause crying, cause healing of my brain, cause healing of my body transversely, concurrently. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but simultaneously is probably the right term, As I work that body part, it caused me to have to deal with things with my head to keep on working that body part. And then as I release those things, that body part got stronger and my brain got stronger too. And I was able to heal from things. Going back to water, one of the spiritual priests that my parents know, that's super cool. His name is Maladoma. And he has a book, and he talked about how within his culture of his village, they had time periods. I think it was at least one or two time periods within the year where it was a requirement where all the men came together and they cried. And what they did was they would buy a body of water, put up an altar, things that reminisce water in terms of like blue stuff like fabric or what have you, candles, all those different things. And they would bond together and cry with each other to help heal from things. And also to bring out not only like tears from pain, but tears from joy too. Because water, like, it can kill you and also heal you. Crying is within us and embedded with us for a reason. And reading about this, and reading about how it was like a requirement, and not in a bad way, but in a good way to help heal you, so you can move on in life and be more productive for those people around you, caused me to be able to remember how I've had an issue with not only water in terms of being afraid of drowning embedded in me, but then also a fear of crying embedded in me because I cried so much as a kid, and I felt like in order to be a man, and to toughen up, I can't cry anymore. But then it caused me to also a lot of things inside myself and not be able to heal from those things because I would never release it. I would bottle it in and then just try to help other people with their issues. But then I can't fully help other people and be there for other people. I'm not there for myself, and I'm not healing myself. And so I made it a big thing for myself, and when things happen, to let the river flow through my eyes, through my experiences. And once I'm getting through my eyes mostly, and my senses dealing with my body, and let the river flow out of them. To let the damage flow out of them. To let the sadness flow out of them. To let the joy that also needs to flow when it needs to. So I am not stuck within particular aspect of my experience, and I continue to flow within the stages of my life. And I let one negatively affect the other, and not allow me to learn from one, and then I can't progress to the next one fully either. It reminds me, and I probably talked about this on the podcast before, it reminds me too of a story from ancient Kemet. Some people say Egypt. Kemet. Alright, y'all? And it talked about how evil was born when order trying to imprison chaos. We might personify tears as chaos. Emotions as chaos. Our depression, letting that show as chaos. We try to hide it versus dealing with it. You cannot imprison the chaos. You have to see why it's there, recognize why it's there, learn from it, grow, and heal. And a lot of times we need that water to heal. Whether it's a burn and we put cold water on it, or there's experience and we cry it out. We cannot drown within our consciousness or allow our consciousness to drown, within our minds in the abyss of our ego. We might allow it to be on the surface and let out the experience, continue to go down that fucking river. So, I believe that it's good experience you can have to help heal you, consciously aware, with no psychedelics or anything. And then there are experiences you can have with these healing plants. Basil is a healing plant. It helps you different ways. Sage does. Turmeric does. This does in a different way. And you have to utilize it for what it's for beneficially. So, want to give a shout out to Jim I train at Independent for allowing me to do my podcast here so much. I appreciate that. To sponsors, Tim Stout and Associates. Not saying I'm promoting those things for them or whatever. They just help me out tournament wise. I think that's one of the cool things about Professor Tim is that he really is about his the people in his circle that he is around. And so if you're there, he's there to help get back and to help people around him. You can see it from him, not just monetary wise, but also emotional wise, teaching wise. He's a good person to be around, period. And he has a wealth of knowledge in order for you to listen and be able to learn from. He constantly reads books and constantly trying to learn and progress himself. And he's a good person to be able to look up to. Shout out to Hero Roofing. I got their shirt on. Like I said, these are my experiences. These are my opinions. That doesn't mean that they're the hoax of whoever's behind me or whatever. That's just me talking and spilling. And like I said, you can also did these experiences, I believe, within life. I believe that you have certain things that help things cure a lot faster and certain things that causes you to have to go through an experience where it's longer. You know what I mean? So, like I say, if you have a muscular issue, you can get. So I think they say don't quote me on this because I'm not an expert. Like I say, if you tore your meniscus, I think or something like that, you can wait and let it heal on its own, or you can get surgery and let it heal that way. Kind of like this, the comparison I want to give for these things. But thank y'all for listening in. Y'all have a good one. Peace.